your average convo, not your average life. Not your everyday mother, not your typical wife. Not your usual podcast, listen to and see. So hope that you will stop a while and spend some time with me.
Hi everyone. Hi Caleb. How are you? Congratulations on your last final.
I'm kind of done. I still have one more class, but I technically am graduated, I guess.
I'm thrilled for you. Hey, how's it feel?
Good. Great. I don't know. It's weird. You just not being on campus at all this week. I went the other day, just took a little skate around campus. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it just doesn't feel real yet because, I haven't really seen anybody, a lot of peers that, you were excited to graduate with, and, I haven't really got that. So that's tough, but, it just feels good. I got it done in four, and we'll call it 4 and plus a summer. And so that was one of the goals that I would kind of set out to accomplish when I came into school, and never thought it'd be possible. And I changed my major 3 times and still, was able to accomplish that. So that was a goal that was cool.
I think it's exceptional. And I just want you to know how proud I am of you and how much I celebrate you. And I think everybody else certainly does as well. It's the nature of that reality, that sort of meh statement. Like when I sent you a text message and I was like, how does it feel? And you're like, meh. I think that's actually that's what I want to talk about today, because that the way that you conceived of your college experience of I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I got through it and I'm proud of myself, or I changed my major 3 times, but I kept going and now I'm through it. I think that we have these expectations for ourselves when we set a goal or we set something forward and the path changes. And I'm feeling that right now. I think most people are feeling that right now. And in the time that we've even launched this channel, a lot has changed. And so instead of having a guest on today, I thought you and I could talk about some of the things that we've learned from one another and from this time, as well as from our guests, and just kind of throw and rehash some of that out before we get to our next guest next week, which will be another wonderful episode. But just a moment to pause and reflect on kind of how we're all feeling and what we've learned.
Yeah, I'm excited. This has been, it's been kind of a blessing to have this extra time to be able to devote to this channel in particular, which, maybe we don't get it done in this like quick of a timetable if COVID wasn't there. So that is one of like the cool takeaways that has came out of this is, we talked about this for three months and we're able to, just go. And that's something that I think is really important, that, everyone talks about silver linings right now. Yeah. And, I think everyone should come out with 1 or 2 that you can take with you for, the next year as we start opening up and returning to some sort of normalcy.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Often we see the end game and we don't know how to get there, right? And right now feels unbelievably daunting. Many times you'll see the end of your college career, or we'll know the name of a podcast, and we know the end game, but we're not quite sure how to get there. So there's 4 things that I've taken away from this experience with you and from our conversations with other people that I want to hit on. Number 1 is share. You have a goal. The number 1 tip is share. Talk it out, right? Our last guest, Renee Siegel, I shared with her that I had a vision for doing this type of a channel. She invited me to come and speak to a class. I was connected with you as a mentee. You and I do an interview and get acquainted, and you tell me that you're kind of keen on learning podcasting. And in my sharing and in your sharing, a moment came together that created a goal reality. If I hadn't shared that, if I hadn't talked to somebody to make it a possibility, I'm not sure that it would have even begun.
Right. And that's tough for people to do. People are always like worried about the judgment that's going to come with, saying your dream or saying something that you're really like inspired by. People are always worried about that judgment. And, stepping for me, wanting to step into this, like, there's been only a select, almost a handful of people that I can kind of count on being like, wow, they've been rocking with me since the first one I recorded, or the first time I ever talked about broadcasting at all. And so you kind of rely on those people. And if I wouldn't have shared, or they wouldn't have, given me feedback, I probably would have put it down and stopped and almost quit. Like, I think that's the nature for a lot of people.
Yeah. The accountability of sharing a vision or a goal is super critical.
Right.
I was reading an article in Harvard Business Review this week. It was perfect timing. And it said, we work harder when we know someone's watching. The article itself said, when others are watching, people feel that what they do is magnified, which can then fuel their motivation. And I really feel that. And I think that's one of also the harder things right now about people working from home and not being seen or having feedback, that it's difficult to summon the motivation to get work done in isolation.
It feels really rewarding if you can, though, I think. And that's the challenge. You have a good day where you feel you got everything done, but then you wake up on that next day, that Tuesday or the Wednesday, and it feels completely different. You have this relaxed feel. You wake up in your room, and then you go to your office. That's, look at you,
which is your room,
bedroom, which is your room, or, in a lot of cases, like for you having kids, and, so you have this confined space where, shut the doors and, shut up. Like,
yeah.
It's just, it's so weird right now. It's just so weird.
Well, the last thing I loved about this is that, like, because of the good feeling of having accomplished, it says the good feeling of having accomplished something is less intense when we are alone. Our motivation to work hard crumbles in self-isolation. And so I just want everybody to remember that number one point, which is to share. Right? Share it out. Even if you're in isolation or you feel that you're in isolation, share it out, because then your goal or your sense of purpose, or even your accountability and possibility of promise to get it done is being held then by someone else in a way that you're being seen and your work is being valued. Right? The number 2 point is start. Just start. Just movement is success. And it's not if you come in first. It's not if you have the most likes or subscriptions. It's just moving in the momentum and putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, if you have something that, like, some burning or driving passion, and I think it's, why the hell not? Put yourself out there. Especially this digital age has given us so much opportunity to just, start and to be present in people's lives. Whether it's a podcast, whether it's a blog, or, maybe it's just something that you've always wanted to do. So maybe you've always wanted to have a journal, or play a guitar or some sort of instrument. Yeah. I think you have to give yourself something right now, outside of work, outside of school, that is important, that can push you in a different realm. I think that's the best way to try to get through this, is as mentally sane as possible.
I had somebody ask me, a neighbor asked me about the podcast and said, you were so self-motivated. And I just chuckled. Because this has been, getting something like this started has been 5 years. The theme song that you hear when you join the show was written 5 years ago. And I've had so many different domains and URLs and thoughts about what this was going to look like, all because I knew that there was so much possibility and joy in storytelling and telling other people's stories. but I would just stall out. I would just stall out. And so it's so important to not only share, but just start and just try to keep that momentum behind you and to keep moving. Even you would like have to sort of get behind me and tell me, just get going.
You know, that you talked about that accountability. And, you know, we kind of, even the disconnect as far as our career wise and our different paths so far, but we were both able to hold each other accountable outside of, you know, our work. And that was something that's taught me a whole lot. And it's why I kind of like the one podcast that I'm doing right now is with a kid that I've always looked up to, but also he was one of the first people to actually listen to anything that I had to say on mine. And then I remember he put out a tweet and said, I'm just waiting for one of my friends to, you know, take advantage of this digital space and like start a podcast. And, you know, I just want to support someone like that. And I saw that, and he didn't like at me or anything, but he texted me a couple weeks later. He's like, you know what that tweet was about, right? And I'm like, kind of, sort of. And he was like, yeah, dude, like you need to just do it. And then he came on, we did an episode, you know, and it's kind of sparked into something, and it's a lot of fun. But without him holding me accountable in that space, I probably would have stopped.
And that leads us to the number 3 tip, which is shake it out. Just shake it out. Just you've shared it. Number 2, you started. Somebody got behind you. You've held yourself accountable, started. Number 3, shake it out. Like I do stall out a lot. And I know the role that I want, or I know the end game, and I don't know how to get there. And I often will seize up. There have been a lot of layoffs lately. There have been job changes. There could be a reorg structure. There could be just you hit a wall mentally related to confinement and not knowing how to proceed and move forward. And there's moments where I have needed, and you've needed, and others have needed just to take a moment to breathe and pause and not be self-critical. I can be super self-critical, and you just got to shake it out. I don't know. How do you persevere through a stall?
Probably not the best one to answer this question. I don't know. That's a very tough question, I think, especially for people my age as well that have lived. No, I've lived every big moment or not every big moment. I would say freshman year of high school is when I got on social media, and that changed a lot of how, you know, you perceive yourself, and, you know, you grow up with like this thing in your hand for, I don't know. It's really made it tougher to have like a shake it out moment, you know, because like at the end of the day, you're still trying to, especially right now with content creation and trying to like digital marketing, you have to be present on these channels. And sometimes those are the biggest lulls that I come to, is being so frustrated, is being on those channels too much. And then being like, not knowing how to, I don't know. See, this is a terrible answer to the question.
It's not a terrible answer to the question. You know, I was actually, a lot of people are watching The Last Dance, right? The Bulls, the Chicago Bulls story. And I was watching it last night, and they were talking about, one of the ESPN commentators was saying Michael Jordan and his talent and the talent of this team came before social media. It came before people doing their own videos. It came just based on talent. And I think that there's a moment in this, just doing the work that matters, that is enough, that we need to give ourselves permission to. Whether, sure, we would love for people to like and grow and follow this. But the fact is also that in those moments of pause, of shaking it out and recalibrating, somebody will send an email that says, what you shared was really meaningful to me and I needed it that day. Or somebody will send another message through another contact and say, I'm so glad that Sarah and Caleb asked that question of their guest, because that's exactly where I was going to go. And I'm really glad that they were able to provide that level of insight for me. And we may not see it all the time. We may not feel it all the time. We may not get that sense of someone's watching. But I don't know. It's not our last dance. We're only just beginning. But I do feel that in our own talent and uniquely, and in this moment, and in what all of the people listening, I'd like to believe there's a lot, in that moment of just that sheer talent, that's enough.
So like, I have a question for, someone who would be down, but not have that, if they don't get that email, they don't get that text, they don't have someone in their corner to, push them, or, maybe they don't even have someone that allows them to share. So what advice would you give to that person, just to kind of persevere through that?
Well, that's where I would get to number 4 point, which is repeat. So you share, you start, you shake it out, and then you repeat. So let's go back to share. You got to find somebody. So you need to take advantage of mentoring. You need to talk to friends. You need to talk to a family. You need to talk to a stranger who may be wearing a mask at the coffee shop next to you. Just share it out, because doors will open. And they'll close as well, but doors will open that will just absolutely surprise you. Absolutely surprise you. And so you can reach out through LinkedIn. You can join some of the mentoring opportunities and consulting opportunities that Renee has shared with us and Connects has shared with us. But just start with share. Just start to find someone who will listen, and then just talk it out. I think you can find it. That's the joy of social media right now, is that there's someone there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Am I being too optimistic?
No, not at all. Not at all. I just think it's one of those things where you share something, you have an expectation, and if you don't meet that expectation, you just get back on the horse tomorrow and try it again. I think that's really all you can do, and not dwell on things. But it's hard, I especially how we perceive ourselves as individuals has changed with this new digital space. I would exclude my generation from that, because we grew up in it. But like your generation, for example, you grew up without it and then have kind of adapted into it. So your perceptions probably aren't as magnified as mine or people my age. And some people my age can completely, disconnect and not like struggle with it. But it's definitely something that I think, shouldn't go without saying. I think people should be more open and talking about a lot of those. Like, I'm very insecure about, the content that I produce a lot of time, or even produce, and then also that I just put up on my social channels, because I'm we're communication nerds, basically. We want to talk to everybody. Mm-hmm. And so being like that, being the extrovert that I am, it's tough. And then having certain people you don't want to hurt their feelings and that kind of stuff, but also you feel like it's crippling to your own, personal brand. Or
look,
it's just a lot to navigate.
There's a lot to navigate, but my grandmother used to have this recipe called sweep the kitchen. My husband always makes fun of me for this, but it's basically finding everything. It's a dedicated recipe, but it feels like it's everything. It feels like it's everything in one dish. And the fact of the matter is that there's goodness in all of the different parts of that recipe. It's all going to come together. It's all going to come together, but it's ultimately going to then result in something delicious as well. But we can't be insecure about what goes into it. Right. And I think that all too frequently we are. And so, look, this is why we started WORKSHIP. We started this because I believe you believe that we can learn from others. I'm going to learn from you. You're going to learn from me. We're going to learn from our guests, and we're going to learn with each other on this journey. And so if people don't feel like they have somebody to share with, I hope that you'll join us. I hope that they'll join this channel, and they'll join us on Instagram and all these conversations, LinkedIn, whatever, and just be a part of it, because that's what this is about, so that we can learn from others and find the goodness in that story and in that sweep the kitchen casserole, if you will. My hope is that you and I and others will also use it as a way to then get unstuck, to share, start, shake it out, and repeat. It's not easy starting, right? But we've just got to keep going, and I'm really hopeful and I'm grateful.
Yeah, I'm glad we had this conversation.
Me too. Me too. All right. Well, we're going to have a wonderful guest next week. I'm so glad that you guys are here. I'm proud of you, Caleb. I see you. Shake it out. I'm going to do the same, and we're going to keep moving. Thank you guys for joining WORKSHIP, and we see you, and we're proud of you too.
So I hope that you will stop a while